Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Impact Travel Alliance April event. Today is Earth Day, so greetings to everyone. Today's event is focused on ocean conservation. So as the title suggests, Water Warriors, how the travel community is tackling ocean conservation is our topic. And we are joined today by our panelists, Dana Franco, director and producer of Voice Above Water, and Vicki Conlin, ocean-friendly restaurants lead from the Surfrider Foundation in San Diego. I'm Toshi Ezekbu. I am the owner and founder of Ubiome, which is a modern eco-friendly travel app for families. And I'm also one of the co-leads here for the Impact Travel Alliance San Diego chapter. So I want to introduce my co-leads, but before I do that, let me talk a little bit about the Impact Travel Alliance. So the Alliance itself is focused on educating travelers on how to explore in a way that has a positive impact on our environment and local communities. So I'm joined by Jamie Owens, who's the founder of Top Trop Eco Travel and also a co-lead here in San Diego, as well as Allison Sitt, who's a hospitality and travel professional. So I want to go ahead quickly and introduce our esteemed panelists, give you a little bit of background on why ocean conservation is important to them and their journey. And then we'll kick into the actual panel discussion for approximately 30 minutes, after which we'll have a Q&A session where everyone on the call today will be able to send in their questions via the Q&A chat function within Zoom. So if you see that at the bottom of your screen, feel free to already start sending in those questions now. And then we'll have that session for about 15 minutes, and then we'll close out. So from there, let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. Dana Franco, as I mentioned at the top, director and producer of Voice Above Water. Dana is a filmmaker based in Northern and Southern California who's helped make Academy Award-winning films come to life. Her directorial debut, Voice Above Water, is a short documentary that combines not only her passion for the ocean, but also her passion for storytelling. Her overall goal as a filmmaker is to tell emotional stories that inspire ocean preservation, sustainability, and global change. We're also joined by Vicki Conlin, as I mentioned at the top, ocean-friendly restaurants lead from the Surfrider Foundation in San Diego. Vicki's a longtime San Diego resident since the 80s and has been fascinated with science and nature for as long as she can remember. This led her to actually pursue studies specifically on the environment and marine biology at San Diego State University. And for the past 30 years, Vicki has been instrumental in developing science curriculum, emphasizing the importance of environmental stewardship. She's been a member and a volunteer of Surfrider for 20 plus years. And she's also the co-lead, as I mentioned, for the Ocean Friendly program and the Ocean Friendly to Go program. So with that, let's kick over to our event. I'm super excited. So the first question actually that we wanted to kind of go through today were some break the ice questions. So this is kind of a happy hour. We want to talk a little bit about, what our panelists do for fun. So for both of you, Vicki and Dana, maybe starting off with Dana, what do you do to relax?
It might not sound too relaxing, but I love to rock climb and then also surf. Really anything near the water or outdoors kind of helps me get grounded and in my happy place.
That's awesome. And Vicki?
I think I feel most relaxed just being immersed in nature, whether it's in the water or on the land.
Awesome, awesome. And then favorite beach?
If there's a lot of people from San Diego out there, you guys will appreciate this one, but San O has always been my favorite beach to surf at, even before I even knew what it was called.
That's awesome. And Vicki?
I'm going to actually say Kaena Beach on the island of Kauai. My husband and I were married there 38 years ago, and our daughter's name is Kaena. It's spelled a little different.
Oh, wow.
It's a
beautiful, it's got a personal touch.
Yeah, it's a beautiful beach.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And also, obviously, it's Earth Day. There's a lot of information. Obviously, we're on the heels of, massive climate announcements that were just made. What is kind of your current read? Is there anything that you've got on the shelf right now that you're super, super immersed in?
I just finished this book called Eat Like a Fish, which I loved. It was amazing storytelling. It's about a fisherman who was kind of a grimy fisherman back in his day, and then he switched over to focusing on kelp. It has to do with a project I'm working on next, but it's really fascinating the amount of sea plants that are regenerative and how they protect our environment and ocean.
Like a fish. Okay, great. And Vicky?
Actually, the book that I just finished has nothing to do with the ocean. But it did have some conservation ideas in it. It's Kristen Hanna's The Four Winds, about the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. And it was interesting how she talked about FDR soil conservation program. That was a very good read.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then last but not least, I'm sure we're all itching to get back out there with vaccinations rolling. So favorite travel spot?
Somewhere that's been on my list for a while, but I haven't gone yet. I was going to go this year was Patagonia, just do a big trek around Patagonia. So I think that'll definitely come back to the list once that's okay.
That's amazing. And Allie's already got the sweatshirt, so.
Yeah.
And then Vicky?
I'd have to say my favorite destination is Panama. Our son lives there, or has lived there for 6 years. And so we've had our personal tour guide, which always makes it more fun. But it's like Hawaii was over 100 years ago once you get outside of Panama City. He lives in the Veraguas Peninsula, and it's just beautiful.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. I can't wait. I can't wait to get back on planes. So let's kick off into our formal panel. Starting with you, Vicky. Let's talk a little bit about, we kind of got a little bit of frame of reference about from your biography, sort of what inspired you. But can you talk to us a little bit more about how you got started specifically in the field of ocean conservation and why it's so important to you? And then also why you think it should be important to the travel community.
Okay, thank you. The oceans have been a really important part of my life since I was really young. And my most fondest memories are enjoying the beaches and the ocean with my husband and 3 children who are adults now. And over the years, I've just noticed the increase in plastic pollution and other waste all over the world, no matter how remote the beach is or the diving, you still see that plastic pollution. And I volunteer for the Surfrider Foundation so that I can help preserve the ocean for all living things and the enjoyment of future travelers like all of you and families so that they can get as much enjoyment as we have.
And Dana?
The beach is my ultimate happy place, like I said, and I can't imagine travel without it. Every time I choose a destination, it does end up being to the beach. I should probably expand outside of that. I guess Patagonia will be that. And so it's always brought me happiness. I meditate and journal and surf and all those things. I find that if I'm doing them by the beach, they just have this whole other meaning to them. And so I've been in film for most of my life, really, like film and writing. And then I really wanted to combine the two because of what was going on in the oceans right now. And it affects our health so much more than I think we even realize. And so I think that it's a good indicator of where we are right now as a planet, how the ocean is doing, and it's concerning once that goes down. So it's like I just wanted to really do something that made a difference, that brought us back to where we need to be a healthy environment.
That's amazing. And in that vein, we're going to have a special treat where we'll be able to see the trailer of your latest work, Voice Above Water. So let's go ahead and kick over to that trailer so that everybody in the audience will be able to see what you've produced.
Kalau laut ini rusak, peka marah. Wah, ini kan plastik. Yang lain, aku anak utang-utang plastik ke pasir. yang dot pulau yang pang kembali dari ini sumber
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I think this is a perfect illustration of what we were just talking about, Vicky and Dana. The fact that our oceans are just full of plastic, and they're such a vital part of our ecosystem. So Dana, can you talk us through what inspired you, aside from the obvious issue, to tackle the awareness around pollution and plastic pollution in our oceans? Were there any major turning points in the film that really inspired you to take this a step further?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was inspired first by traveling to different places like Indonesia, Africa, even local national parks, and just seeing the amount of trash that was everywhere. I really wanted to come back home and do something about it. And so I started talking to a bunch of nonprofits, scientists, you name it. And it was these interesting organization called 4Ocean that told me about their fishermen who were going out into the water using their boats and net to collect trash instead of fish because it had changed dramatically over the last decade. And I wanted to make a hopeful film. I think there's a lot of really sad stuff, that can kind of get you down. But if you really feel like you can make a difference, then I think together we could all really do something about it. So I was inspired by Wyon, who was our subject. He so innocently just goes out into the water, collects trash every single day. And at the end of the film, we estimate that he's picked up 62,400 pieces of trash. So that's just one person in his small fishing boat. And I thought about if we used all the resources that we have, I mean, even if you think about that on like a global scale or a country, we are definitely not using those resources like Wyon is. And so Wyon is a small example of that. So I was hoping that it comes through with the personal connection to Wyon, but then it really hits on a global scale.
No, that's amazing. And I do think you're right, very much so. It's a collective effort. We all need to do our part, especially as all big travel enthusiasts, to protect the environment so that ultimately we can enjoy it and then the generations thereafter. So thank you for this incredible piece of work, and hoping everybody else will see it once it is made public. So with that, let me switch over to Vicky. Vicky, you've been a long time resident of San Diego, and you've seen a lot of shifts, particularly around the restaurant industry and the supply chain. So what's your perspective in terms of the approaches people are taking now around ocean friendliness, and what is Surfrider doing specifically around ocean conservation?
Yeah, I have seen restaurant workers and customers' attitudes towards sustainability really change for the positive over the years, especially maybe the last 7 to 8 or 5 to 8 years I've seen this. And I remember a while back when I would take out in fact, I brought some show and tell, I'd bring my reusable container for my leftovers at a restaurant, and I could see that the server was saying in his mind, oh my gosh, what a nutcase. They just had this look of just, I'm so pathetic. But now I have to say, when I pull it out, they're like, oh, that is just so cool. I love your container. And I'm going to start doing that and bringing my container to the restaurant. And same thing with straws. I used to say, oh, please don't bring us any straws. We're a straw-free table. And I would get the eye roll. But again, now they're just like, oh, you guys are so cool. I love this table. And so those attitudes have definitely changed. And Surfrider has launched 2 separate programs here in San Diego to address the waste issue. And one of them was the Ocean Friendly Restaurant Program back in 2015. We also refer to it as OFR. The mission of the program is to basically increase environmental awareness and reduce waste, one restaurant, one customer at a time. And we currently have about 125 OFRs in San Diego County and 600 plus across the country. It is now a national program. As you can imagine, during the pandemic, the program, the OFR program, came to a temporary standstill because we obviously did not want to bother restaurants during these difficult times. But because communities wanted to support our local restaurants by ordering to go, we have this huge uptick in to-go waste, as I'm sure you guys have all noticed. And so a bunch of us OFR volunteers were kind of throwing ideas back and forth, you know, how can we help and how can we reduce all this waste? And so we came up with this super simple, easy and free program called the Ocean Friendly To Go program, which we just recently launched in San Diego County. And it's basically, as a customer, when I place an Ocean Friendly To Go order at a restaurant that's implemented the program, I am telling the restaurant by ordering an Ocean Friendly To Go order that I'm going to bring my own container to the restaurant. It alerts their kitchen staff to plate my meal on a reusable dinnerware, just as if I were dining in at the restaurant. And when I get to the restaurant, they direct me to whatever station they have set up for the transfer of my food. Sometimes it's a table or a counter with some signage, you know, just giving me simple 3-step directions. And then I wait for my food to come out on reusable dinnerware. They bring it out and I transfer my own food into my own containers. So restaurant staff never touches my container and my container never goes to the back of the kitchen, which a lot of restaurants in the past have been worried about. Some of these container exchange programs are great, but there are customers that kind of look down on those programs because the containers do go across the counter. So this is just such an easy program, and we've got a couple on board now. We've got one in Ocean Beach, Sunny's, and West Brew is our newest one in Del Mar. And so we're really hoping it takes off, and we're hoping that all your participants will just go talk to their favorite restaurant where they order to go and just talk to them about the Ocean Friendly To Go program. Go to our blog site and it has all the information the restaurant needs. And again, it's completely free for restaurants and customers. The last thing I would say about what has been happening with sustainability in the food industry, the restaurant industry, is there's probably over 20 cities across California that have passed some kind of plastic reduction ordinance or polystyrene ban, also known as styrofoam. And we have just seen so many more restaurants are now carrying alternative products, and they have done away with polystyrene altogether, or the plastic straws, and have switched to paper straws. So I think there's definitely a movement towards sustainability, and restaurants are figuring out real quickly that all the younger generation like yourselves, they care about it, and they will make their choices of which restaurant they go to depending upon their sustainability practices.
This is fantastic, Vicki. And actually, now I've got an idea. So one of my favorite restaurants here in San Diego is Nectarine Grove. And one of the reasons why I go to them is because all of their utensils are biodegradable, and they're very careful about their packaging and trying to reduce waste. And so I'm definitely going to go there because they see my face pretty much like 3 or 4 times a week to say, hey, you got to join this program. It's really important, especially because to-go is here to stay for quite some time. I don't think people are going to stop doing to-go orders even once we shift out of the pandemic. So off of the back of this conversation, especially because our audience is obviously here to talk more about the tools and the ways in which they can at an individual level contribute to change around conservation, what do you both think about what they can do at a micro level to support ocean conservation? We talked about obviously being part of this program. What else do you think could be done on a daily basis, even at the minutest level?
Yeah, I totally agree. I carry fork and silverware and in my car. So whenever I do pick up food, I don't have to take their whatever they have to provide. And then I also am just basically more mindful about everything that I use and where it comes from and where it's going, which is something that before I made this film, I may have thought about a little bit, but now I think about at least 5 times a day. And I think just bringing that awareness to what you're doing and what your actions are, and that it also makes other people aware of it. I know people that just through me talking about it, I've heard them become interested in stuff like that, or saying like, oh, she's so passionate about this, it must be something. So I really do think that there's a chain reaction to this stuff, and just being a good example of what you do yourself. Sometimes it seems like so meaningless. It's like, I'm just one person and this is one plastic fork, but I think all together it really, really does inspire others.
And it adds up, definitely adds up. So
Yeah.
yeah, a little thing can go a long way if everyone's doing a little thing. Vicky, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have, as far as travel goes, I have 3 personal sustainable travel rules for myself. So my backpack is so heavy because I have all these reusables, and I'm going to do show and tell again. I have my little Surfrider bamboo complete with straw, utensil kit, my reusable bag for shopping wherever I travel, of course the little container that you've seen, and my water bottle, and then something that I've been using a lot lately is a filter. It's just a press filter, which is really good because some places like in Panama, you can't always have access to clean water and you have to drink tap water, and they want to try to sell you plastic bottles of water, but I always have this and I can clean it even at a restaurant or wherever I am. The other thing is to eat like a local. Try to eat at places, mom and pop places that have reusable dinnerware, and then search out those businesses that practice sustainability as far as lodging and tour groups and things like that.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't even think about the water filter. That's another level. So I always carry around my water bottle, and I'm completely against single-use plastics. But that's a really smart tip on the water filter. So kind of talking a little bit more now about the ocean itself, and in light of Earth Day, and the fact that we know that there's this true existential threat to our environment. What do you think, if you look at the totality of everything that's happening across our oceans, is the deadliest threat? Dana?
That is a really good question that I am constantly asking myself, and I'm sure maybe a lot of people in this group saw Seaspiracy, and which that now I'm like totally rethinking everything, and so I would say that climate change is huge, and then now I would say that overfishing is huge as well. As far as what's the biggest one, I don't know. And I'm like, does it really even matter? When I try to think about it myself, I'm like, these are all things that are destroying our ocean. And so if we can tackle all, it's necessary for us to tackle all of them to get to the place that we want to be. So plastic pollution, being mindful about, driving cars, and then also just finding the source behind where you get your foods and what you eat. I think it's all equally as important.
That's brilliant. And Vicky?
I agree with you, Dana, on all counts. I saw Seaspiracy as well, a very well done documentary. And I too am thinking more about the source of my seafood. But the oceans, there's not just one threat to the oceans. And there's not just one solution. So same thing, climate change, overfishing, plastic, and other types of pollution. So we have to address all of them.
Agreed. And to take us on a little bit of a lighter note, because I'm sure all of us are getting to the point where we're a bit zoomed out. We want to get back into the seat of a plane or a car and head to our next fun destination. So if you, start getting back out there yourselves, do you have in mind a place that's the ultimate next destination for you?
For me personally, I'm really excited to go to Hawaii. I have a trip planned and it's to make the next documentary, which will be more based on ocean farming, kind of more of what we're talking about. And in the last month or two, I've changed the story idea from going from fish farming to sea plant farming, which has to do with like that book I mentioned, Eat Like a Fish, and similar to Seaspiracy, where it's like, it really feel like the plant-based items, especially in the ocean, are what are going to help us get to a better place for the environment. And there's this whole scientific element to it that I've been learning a lot about. And what I want to go do in Hawaii is find out exactly what you asked just a minute ago, is like, okay, but how as individuals can we use that knowledge and change our day-to-day? So yeah, I am fascinated to go talk to these they all happen to be women as well, which is really empowering. So that is my next excitement of where I want to go as soon as possible.
That sounds like work and pleasure. You're trying to get it all in at once. That's really great. And Vicky, what about you? Where's the next place you're headed?
I would like to explore more of the South Pacific. I've only been to Fiji once, and my husband and I love to scuba dive, and I've heard the Solomon Islands and Palau and Papua New Guinea and all those areas are spectacular. So I think that's on our radar when we can afford it, because it's pretty darn expensive getting down there.
Definitely, and a long trip too.
Yeah.
So that's one to prepare for. Well, that's great. So I think now what we can do is head over into our Q&A session. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of questions about many of the topics we've covered today. So I'm going to pass it over to Ali to introduce herself as part of also the chapter here in San Diego and take us through the questions.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. Yes, I love Impact Travel just because it is a platform for us all to get educated on ways we can be more sustainable in not only our everyday life, but ways in which we travel. So yes, thank you, Dana and Vicky, for providing great insight on what you do to help conserve our oceans. Lou, I see you asked a great question already, but does anyone else have questions for our panelists? Which, by the way, thank you, Amy, for providing the answer to on all the OF ocean friendly to go restaurants in San Diego. Well, I have a question. In which ways, like as you travel, what can you keep in mind most besides, I guess, bringing utensils and such, since I know that we're a community based on like thinking of different ways in which we can save the planet. I know, Jamie, you are actually the owner of an eco-friendly travel agency, so maybe you can provide some insight.
What was the question again, Allie? Sorry.
In which ways, like other than like, saving the ocean, can you think about travel differently?
There are so many different aspects to sustainable travel. It's crazy. I guess number one would be calculating your carbon footprint when you do travel, and thinking about different ways of traveling. Like if you can take a train instead of flying, you can reduce your carbon footprint that way. And then whatever you can't reduce, you can offset. So there are a ton of companies out there who do carbon offsets. You just kind of have to do your research and figure out which one you want to support, I guess. Another one is even just traveling to a sustainable destination. Like some places are more sustainable than others, like Belize and Colombia, just as an example, are sustainable destinations. And then also choosing hotels that are sustainable. And also wherever your money is going is kind of very important. So you want to support local communities, I think Vicky said supporting mom and pop restaurants, just kind of putting your money where your mouth is. So just doing your research and supporting sustainable businesses.
Are there any like resources that you can go to, like an app you can use to kind of target these companies that focus on, you know, providing more local support to communities? Because I know that when I travel, sometimes I don't even think where my money is going. And, you know, your dollar that you spend is not even giving back to the community. Let's say it's going to the government, or, you know, those local communities aren't actually seeing it.
The Global Tour, I'm going to say this wrong. Is it Global Sustainable Tourism Council is a great resource. Sorry. They're like one of the top resources for sustainable travel. Also, CREST is another resource. I'm forgetting the elongated name, I guess.
Maybe
what CREST stands for.
Yeah.
But yeah, the GSTC and CREST are like the top two, I would say.
Got it. And I was thinking maybe we can add these links to our follow-up email to all the attendees, because like I said, impact travel is like my favorite way to just educate myself on different ways I can make an impact in the community, not just in everyday life, but especially traveling, because it's my favorite thing to do. And yeah, so I know sometimes like it becomes a little bleak to hear in the news how we're killing the planet, and especially since it's Earth Day, you know, keeping in mind that we all have a part in this is super key. So yeah.
Allie, I think we have a question in our queue.
Oh, sorry, I just ignored the chat.
It's okay.
Yeah, well, I think I may have asked you about it. It's all on educating ourselves on resources and, you know, different platforms we can use to travel smarter.
Allison, can I interject real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we would go traveling internationally, there's I don't know if this is the actual website name, but a Pack with Purpose. Have you guys heard of Pack with Purpose? So it's a organization that tells you if you're traveling, for example, to Panama. Actually, in this case, we just asked our son, what does the local community need? And so it will tell you specifics of, you know, maybe they need some first aid supplies, or maybe the schools would love to have some soccer balls, or so it's packed with purpose depending upon where you're traveling to, you know, instead of just bringing random stuff that they might not need.
Yeah, that's a great tip, just because, I mean, a lot of times when I travel, you just see the different communities and how poverty affects them all so much. And as a tourist, you might not realize it because you're seeing the sites that, you know, all your money's going to. So
yeah, I think that's a great point. In Voice Above Water, the documentary I did, it really, what we found out was that the island of Nusa Penida, where it was filmed, the pollution had increased way more when tourism started. So just kind of keeping that in mind, because sometimes you go somewhere and you kind of forget that, like, okay, we're stepping aboard on somebody else's territory and making a huge difference. And just being aware, like even just the boats that are going over there now create more pollution in the water. And just being mindful and grateful about that, and thinking, yeah, what type of transportation can I take there that'll be less intrusive to the environment that I'm appreciating, is a good one.
I have a question for Vicky, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll know the answer, but I'm going to Maui on Saturday, and I was wondering if you had a favorite ocean-friendly restaurant there. I think they have the program there, right?
They do. I think, let's see, Kauai, Oahu, Maui, trying to think if any of the other islands have it, but those three definitely have the program. You know, I can't help you out with that. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you'd have to decide what kind of food you wanted and look at their list. Do they have a list? We have a list on our website at the San Diego chapter.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they have some kind of list.
Yeah, I checked it out before, but I need to go back to it.
Yeah, that's I've spent a little time on Maui, but not a lot. I've been on the other islands a little bit more. Have fun.
Thank you.
And actually, I have a question for you, Vicki, to follow on the one that Jamie just asked, because we are obviously the Impact Travel Alliance, a global group. So we have chapters all across the world, and it continues to expand. So do you foresee the Ocean Friendly Restaurants program expanding globally, or is it really just going to be focused in the U.S.?
You know, I do see it expanding, and I really definitely the Ocean Friendly To Go program. I just think it would be amazing if travelers would talk to, you know, little local restaurants about the program, and because it's free, and it actually saves restaurants money on to-go packaging, because that really adds up. And you know, my dream someday is to have cities competing with each other of who has the most ocean friendly to-go restaurants in their communities.
Oh, I love that. I like a nice little dashboard that you guys have on your website.
Yeah, I think Hawaii is #1 in blue tourism, and then I think San Diego's second, is what I learned from one of our past events. So I love the competitiveness of this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the more time you spend in the ocean, the more aware you are in like how important it is to save our oceans, because I mean, I didn't fact check this, but I did see in Seaspiracy that by 2048, our oceans will be depleted and empty. So it's very scary. But on a positive note, we are educating everyone.
You know, it's interesting when my son would work with the elementary school in the little town in Panama. He would organize beach cleanups with the kids at this one particular beach where a lot of them would go on the weekends, and there's just so much trash because they didn't have trash cans. They don't have trash pickup like we do.
Right.
I mean, we're bad in San Diego and we do have trash pickup. So you can imagine in places where they don't have that infrastructure. And he said it was just so eye-opening for the kids when they actually saw, you know, what was left behind or what washed up on the beach because people just throw their trash in the rivers that ends up in the ocean. And so it was just really eye-opening for those kids to see it firsthand.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like easy to blame, you know, the people throwing trash everywhere, but like local communities and like really vilifying them. But in the end, you know, we can all inspire each other like Wyon in Dana's film has. So it's a great takeaway. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think there was a question about what do we plan on doing for Earth Day? I can answer that. I work for Pixar Animation Studios 9 to 6 every day. So I've been inside working all day, but I do plan on, I've made a collection of the organizations that I love, and Surfrider is like definitely one of them. At the end of our film, there's a petition with Surfrider, and just making donations, and just if I'm not already following their newsletters, start following and paying attention to the big issues at hand, because I find they are the ones that are really studying what's going on around the world and where we can put our donations and effort towards. And then obviously not today, but over the weekend, I do plan on doing a beach cleanup, even if it's not with other people sometimes, and also to tie into traveling. I find it really nice to just wake up and kind of walk down the beach or wherever I am traveling and going to do a little cleanup on my own, and whatever reason, it makes me feel a little bit more connected to the place that I'm staying, like I'm giving back to what they're offering me for being able to visit such a beautiful place. So those are a couple of things I'm going to do this week.
Dana, for those of you that like to clean up the beach by yourself, and other listeners at the event here, have you guys heard of the Marine Debris Tracker app?
Mm-mm.
So if you download that, and I wish I knew the Surfrider password, I can't think of it, but even if you just do your own personal sign in, you track what kinds of trash you're picking up. And it's a huge help for organizations like Surfrider and other nonprofits, or legal organizations that are trying to pass plastic reduction ordinances, because we can take all that data and show government officials. And it's kind of fun, because it just makes what you're doing even that much more important, because it's going to be used for data. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's free.
Cool. And Vicky, what did you say the name of the app was again? Because I think that's what we're going to go do for Earth Day then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's Marine Debris Tracker.
Marine Debris Tracker. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to pop that in.
Yeah, and so I think you could set up a account for Impact Travel Alliance. And so any people in your organization that want to do individual cleanups, they can sign into your account, and that way you would get the data analysis at the end of the year. I'm not sure when they send it to you, or whenever you want to get it. I guess you could just request it.
That's brilliant. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Allie, Jamie, do you guys have any plans?
I think I'll go to my favorite beach, Grandview, and do a little solo beach cleanup.
I guess I tended to my compost today, so I feel accomplished with that. But it wasn't the nicest day in San Diego, so I guess it didn't feel super festive. I don't know.
I don't know what's going on with the weather here, but I mean, I'm obviously somewhat new to the area, having moved here from the East Coast, from New York 6 months ago. So I feel like this is a typical New York day. I don't know what's going on here. I've now been spoiled by the sunshine.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up all the questions, though, unless anyone has anything else. Hello, Carrie Ann. Carrie Ann just did a beach cleanup last weekend, so yeah.
Yay.
Sorry to come in late.
Just in the Q&A, I guess we have Ryan Kelly here who just wants to connect with Dana possibly afterwards. They own a natural sunscreen company and they want to talk films with you.
Oh, awesome. Here, I can put my email in the chat, and then anyone feel free to reach out. This is my favorite thing to talk about and connect to with people about, so I'm happy to chat. So I'll add my email right now.
And Vicky, anything you want to say about signing up to Surfrider and just making sure people are aware on how they can get more involved?
Yeah, you can just go to Surfrider SD for the San Diego chapter, sd.org. As far as the Ocean Friendly To Go program, it's usually /Ocean Friendly To Go or /OFR for the Ocean Friendly Restaurant program. And they'll be directed to me or the office manager will get you in the right place.
I'm a volunteer for Surfrider San Diego too. So I volunteer for the Blue Water Task Force. So they have a lot of different, I guess, sections, or what would you call it, Vicki?
Well, we have programs.
Yeah,
and then there's committees. So it's either a program or a committee. But yeah, we've got climate change and clean border now, or clean water now, and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, the link that I was saying at the end of Voice Above Water in the film, it goes to the Break Free from Plastic Act that is all Surfrider. And the reason we chose that one, not just because it's Surfrider and we love Surfrider, was also because it's working with the federal government. So on top of what we're saying, what you can do on a personal level, it's something that you can hit on a larger scale, because part of it is what we can do on a personal level, but then a lot of it is getting to these companies that are making all these plastics and saying, hey, let's do something about this. Let's make something that's compostable, or think of workarounds. So it's kind of hitting it at both angles. So I'm also very appreciative to Surfrider for providing information and acts like that, and doing the dirty work. We got to put the link up and get people to know about it, but it takes a lot of work to reach out to legislation and get so many people on board. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and that's one of the best things you can do for Earth Day is go to websites like Surfrider or Oceana or any other nonprofits that work to keep our oceans clean, is to take those action, go to the action alerts and look through those and read through them and become educated and sign them, even better. But that one, the break free from plastics, is a really important one, and it was very, very well done. It was, I think it's the best one that's ever been out there.
Cool.
All right, so I think we're all set with questions. Any last? No? All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm Jamie. I just want to say a huge thank you to Vicki and Dana for making it on with us today.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for, this is great.
Thank you guys. And I want to thank everybody who joined us. Happy Earth Day. Cheers, since it was a happy hour. As an event attendee, you'll be registered for our newsletter to stay up to date on our future events. For For Impact Travel San Diego, our next event will be July. The theme is plastic pollution, and we're going to be discussing plastic alternatives. So be sure to be on the lookout for that and join us for that. Our newsletter also includes roundups and resources for traveling more mindfully, like blog posts with tips and best practices. If you're interested in joining the Impact Travel San Diego team, there will be a link to the application form to volunteer in our post-event email. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Thank you guys. Happy Earth Day.